Hello friends, Brian Shercliffe here with a short poem from within the text of Sweet Lady J. It's something I added to the end to begin to give a sense of kind of my next project in a sense, and looking at a text called Samuel in the Bible, first book of Samuel, written by a different author. So Sweet Lady J, or the Yahwist, writes most of Genesis, and perhaps pieces later than that in Exodus and on. The Yahwist is a very special writer, but I think the Deuteronomist as well, another special writer, was in some way in conversation with this Yahwist writer. Maybe not person to person, almost definitely not person to person, but their texts seem to be talking with one another. And the Deuteronomist writer, or writers, probably better said, committee of writers, maybe over the years, who are telling this tale of the early days of political power beginning to corrupt, but there being another option. And so I invite you to this poem, this experience that might give a sense of a little bit of what I'm up to in trying to complete this translation of 1 Samuel, which is a tricky little text and very, very clever. And just when you think you got what's going on, the text darts a little bit this way or a little bit this way. And that's what makes it fun. It makes it a challenge, but that's what makes it fun. And my project right now is to find a way to invite people to realize some of the cleverness that's there in the Hebrew in a way that might invite people to wonder what really is happening. Certainly back then, 3,000 years ago or so, but even more so right now, as we begin to learn, perhaps, in the midst of the quarantining with this virus, that there maybe our old ways no longer serve us. And maybe there is another way. Maybe there's always been another way. And maybe what Samuel was up to on the mountaintop with the boys, as it is actually in the Hebrew, or as I say, the misfits, those that do not fit into the ways that empire demands of us. What Samuel and the misfits were doing up on that mountain just might be what we need. And who knows? Maybe it's what Jesus was up to out there in the desert too. And all the greats who leave behind, as Merton calls it, the shipwreck of society in search of that quieter voice, the wiser voice that exists within us and within the breeze. So here's this very short poem. Well, what do you know? Woodstock, that peace and love fest in the hinterlands of 1969, Woodstock appears to be biblical, as it comes around just when it's needed. All those naked hippies, high on the wind, high on God. That's the biblical books of Samuel and Kings in a nutshell. All of it begun by a priest in training, Samuel, who lost his post. All of it begun by Yahweh, old breezy, swirling the wind around these naked ecstatics high on the hillside. While once poor, now rich oligarchs invade foreign nations to make a big buck, the ecstatics were naked, getting high on the wind. And the wind was getting them up to do some pretty wild things, like raising the dead to life and multiplying the loaves. And when the oligarchs were really about to fuck it up royally again, the ecstatics, high on the wind, would swoop through town, down from the mountain, and sing the song that saves the day. For a while, just a little while, just enough to awaken us to our creatureliness again, that we might live. Only difference between Samuel's gang of misfits and the Woodstock peace and lovers is the drugs. Sammy's gang of misfits seems more interested in the way of the wind. Old breezy, blowing the wind around. That this wind blowing itself around brings ecstasy to anyone who can sit there long enough for it all to happen. Yahweh, the wild wind. You know this too, right? Rock, roll, sex, love, naked self on the naked earth, the wind, the all. Who were these ecstatics? The prophets, The Bible's prophets. The Nevi'im, the Hebrew word that Bible translators have usually translated as prophets, although Nevi'im actually means ecstatics. Not a whole lot different from those Woodstock gatherers who drove from all over the country to Max Yasgur's farm 50 years ago to welcome a different, non-political, not this warring economy, peace and loving way. Samuel and the dropout misfits on the mountain is told in the Bible 3,000 years ago. The 500,000 Woodstock gatherers and those who tried to get there but couldn't 50 years ago. And you too? It's nature's way to be so wise as to follow the wind.